listening to the best of the Martha Zoller Show. To hear the full show each day, tune in to AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN or log in to accesswdun.com and click the Listen Live button from 9 to 11 Monday through Friday. Derek Dooley is here with me today, and Derek has been on the campaign trail about 3 months now, and has it been 3 months? It seems like it. It's every day's a long day. But welcome back to the program. How are you?
Hey, Martha, it's great to be back, and you think every day's a long day. I think they're all too short. I've just enjoyed so much hitting all four corners of the state. I get in my truck every day and going to meet the great people of Georgia, and we've had a lot of momentum building. There's a lot of enthusiasm, and I think everybody right now wants some new leadership in Washington.
So tell me, as you've been around, because, Lord, this is something that's not that new to you. Campaigning may be different, but when you were coaching, you would go around the country and talk to people in their homes. You would do all those kinds of things. But what are some of the things you've learned that have surprised you as you've been getting around on the road?
Nothing really has surprised me, Martha. What it's really done is reinforced what I already thought, and one of the reasons that I got into this race. I think, on one hand, there's just a lot of disdain for D.C. politics. Everybody's frustrated, and there's no greater example than what we're dealing with right now with a government shutdown. And I just think that everybody wants some new leadership, somebody that's going to go up there and put all their energy on delivering results for the people, not for somebody's political career or political ambition or what the party wants, but instead they're up there focused on serving the people of Georgia. And, you know, we've had a lot of great senators from our state in the past who have done that, and they've been models for the future, and that's certainly why I'm running, because we need some new leadership in the Senate in Georgia.
So what do you see as the biggest issues that you're seeing as you talk to folks?
Well, it always starts with safety and the economy, Martha. And, you know, I go around and talk to business leaders and people in the community from all walks, and they're all different industries, but we all want the same things. Everybody wants to be safe. Everybody wants to be able to have a good job, and everybody wants to be able to afford things so that they can raise a family and have a comfortable life. And there's a lot of issues right now that we need to do better to get some of those things more workable. And what I found is I always ask this question: how can the federal government help? How can the federal government help? How can it help your business? How can it help you personally? About 8 out of 10 times, the thing that I found is the federal government needs to get the heck out of the way and let our hard-working Georgians go to work, our businesses go to work and create jobs. But there are certain areas, and certainly the agriculture is one of the biggest ones, where the federal government needs to intervene and needs to provide some relief and needs to help our families and our industry leaders in Georgia. And so it's just been a great learning experience, and it helps me really shape on some of the things that are going to be a priority for me as a senator.
So this is a really different government shutdown than the last one that we had. I was working for Senator Perdue in the last shutdown, and President Obama went out of his way to make the shutdown as painful as possible by shutting down parks and things like that. And President Trump has moved some tariff money so that the WIC payments will continue. He's moved some money around so the military will continue to get paid. But what are you hearing as you are out on the road related to the government shutdown?
It's D.C. politics at its worst, and I think it's another example. Everybody just rolls their eyes. You know, Congress's line one job is to fund the government, and that's their number one priority, and they can't get it done. Now, what's interesting today, though, Martha, is there is a little update. You know, you talked about funding the military. Well, there's 12 bills that Congress has to pass into law in order to fund the federal government. Well, one of them has to do with defense, paying our troops, funding the military. And what Senator Thune has done is says, listen, can we at least agree that during this shutdown, we should go ahead and pass this one bill into law so we can fund our military, fund our troops. And so that's going to be on the floor today. And as you know, John Ossoff, our senator, has voted, I think, 8 or 9 times, maybe more, to keep the government shut down. It will be interesting to see if he can stand up one time against his party or Chuck Schumer or AOC or whoever it is and do what's right for the military and vote for funding the military. And so, we have thousands and thousands of military personnel active duty in our state, and I hope that gets passed at minimum.
Yeah, absolutely. And there needs to be some work done. And I mean, Ossoff cannot, he got 50.6% of the vote. But as you pointed out in the audio that I played, he votes 98% with the Democrats. I mean, I never thought that I would say John Fetterman sounds like the most reasonable Democrat out there when he was running for election, but he understands that he lives in a state that's split, and he's gone as far as saying the radical thing that he has friends and neighbors that are Trump supporters, and they're not bad people. We need more of that kind of conversation, Derek, not less.
Martha, it's called leadership. Yep. I can't tell you how many times I've said leadership matters. And listen, I give Senator Fetterman credit because he puts his country and his state over his party. That's what good leaders do. We're going to get elected by the people of Georgia. And so my priority is I'm putting the people of Georgia first, all Georgians. And you can't sit there and go up there and you're focused on your own political career or whatever the party tells you. That's not what good leadership is. And so I commend him for crossing over. I think there's 3 Democrats who now have supported opening the government up. We don't need many more, but it just confuses me. Actually, it doesn't. It does not confuse me that John Ossoff hadn't voted for it, because all you got to do is look at his voting record over the last 5 years. Yeah,
I mean, there are a number of senators, and what I've been telling everybody every day is that you need to call the local offices of Senator Ossoff and Senator Warnock and tell them they need to vote to open the government. And then there's about 6 others in states that Trump won, and you don't call them if you live in Georgia. And I always tell them this: you've got to find your friends and neighbors that live in those states and get them to call. Because if you call from Georgia to Colorado, or if you call from Georgia to Arizona, they're just going to put it in the circular file. What you've got to do is be involved in your own state. And I loved what you said, Derek, about serving the state, because the United States Senate has become too much about caucus and not enough about constituent. And we have got to get back to where your first priority is the state of Georgia, or the state you were elected by, and not this pretty group of people, this club that you belong to that is your caucus.
You're speaking my language, Martha. And, it's not John Ossoff's seat. It's not the Democratic Party seat. It's not the Republican Party seat. It's the people of Georgia's seat. And so whoever is in that seat, that's who they represent. And I think too many people go up to D.C. and they get intoxicated with the power. They get so consumed with the politics that goes on up there and accruing power, and they start making decisions that are based on their personal gain over the people of Georgia and over the people of other states. And that's one of the main reasons I'm running, because I'm frustrated with it. It's why we have so much sort of standstill in our government. And so the only way we're going to change it is to start sending different people up there. And that's the mood I've gotten as I've gone all around the state. And I think we're going to make a big change come November.
Absolutely. Derek Dooley, if people want to help you, how can they do that?
DooleyForGeorgia.com. Listen, I've said we need votes, but we also need money. Don't forget, John Ossoff is getting totally funded by states like California. He's going to have hundreds of millions at his defense, and so we need a little something to counter that. And if you believe in what I'm saying, I hope you'll go on our website and support me. But the most important thing for me, Martha, is me getting out and meeting the people of Georgia, rolling up my sleeves, shaking hands, delivering my message. And what I ask everybody is, if you believe in what I'm saying and you believe in the kind of leadership style I represent, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, and let's get this momentum even bigger.
So one final question, probably the most important question. Georgia is 7.5 point spread ahead of Ole Miss. Can they beat Ole Miss? I know I'm a little nervous about that. I'm a little nervous about that if I'm being honest.
You buried the lead. Well, I'm not going to sit here and talk about the betting lines, but I will tell you, everybody, it's amazing. You can get spoiled real fast as a Georgia fan because it is absolutely remarkable the job Kirby Smart has done, and he's winning these games. It's so much like the way Alabama won, where there's all these games that happen, and you go, there's no way they should have won that game. But that's when you have a tremendous culture, a lot of great players, a lot of great coaching, the players just know no matter what happens in the game, they're going to pull through. And that's what I expect them to do, Ole Miss. But I'm not going to speak on the line, Martha. That's for everybody else to debate.
That's right. Derek Dooley, thank you so much. You knew I had to ask you a football question. You knew that because I love it.
All right.
Thank you.
Look forward to coming back, Martha. Thank you.
It's where North Georgia comes to talk. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
Former Representative Tom Graves is here with me right now. He's spent a lot of time since he's been out of Congress working on the temperature in the Congress, and we couldn't wait to talk to him today. Tom, how are you?
I'm great. Good morning. Good to be back with you.
So just give me your lay of the land before we get into the issues of kind of where we are today related to the shutdown and all the other stuff that's happening.
Yeah, the lay of the land. I mean, Washington is it is really unsettled right now. I mean, that's the I guess the most diplomatic way to say it. Watching what's happening with the shutdown, how Republicans and Democrats are really not working together at all, and it is the responsibility of the minority party to work with the majority party, no matter who's in charge, and they're refusing to do that. And that clip you just played, shows you that there is a movement outside the Democrat Party that is controlling them right now, and I would hope they're not fearful of an outside organization, but they were elected to represent their districts or to represent their state, and they should do that, not represent outside organizations' interest.
Because there are about 6 other senators that are Democrat senators, including ours here from Georgia, that are in states that President Trump won just a year ago, okay? And you would think that they would have the freedom to vote their conscience, which I would think would be with the voters of their state, not necessarily the caucus. And that's my biggest kind of sadness about where we are compared to where we were 10 to 20 years ago, is there seems to be more loyalty to the caucus that you are in than the constituents you represent.
Yeah, that's the point. I think back to when I was first elected, Barack Obama was president, and I obviously did not agree with his policies or his party and their position on platform, but I didn't want to see him fail. If he were to fail, then that meant the country's in a bad direction, going in a bad direction. And that's what's occurring today, though, is that Democrats just dislike President Trump so much that they can't even agree with him on things they actually agree on, and they can't do that publicly. It's a sad time when you reach that stage. They should be celebrating successes, regardless of who's in charge, and supporting things they support. So a good example, government shutdown we're in right now, is all about this, what's called a CR, which is continuing resolution. And that is a tool of the minority. It always has been known as that. It's an extension of the previous administration's policies and funding levels, and now they are against their own past policies and funding levels. And so it's backwards. It's like upside down world right now.
Do you think, Tom, that if you have a conversation, and I'm sure you're still in the place where you talk to some of these folks, when you have a conversation with them, I got to believe they see this, that they see that they voted for this same CR basically 13 times, and now they're saying they voted for it in March. Now they're saying it's not good enough, and it's like they don't care that they don't make sense.
Yeah, it's not a rational argument in any way right now to, shut the government down for this reason. And they're saying the ACA extension of something that's not even expired right now, right? So it's the wrong reason to do it. It is a leverage point, and maybe you can get some spending level changes or some things like that. But, look, you've got an appropriations process too. Just just roll with that. You've been doing that in the Senate, bipartisan, just keep moving forward with that. So they have a sentiment of bipartisanship at one point, but then when it becomes public and President Trump says, hey, I'm for this, let's do this, it's the right thing right now, and let's finish it later, then all of a sudden they're opposed to it. And so that's the sad state we're in. And I hope we get through that. It's been frustrating. And, how did we get here? I think, to be honest with you, I've been out for 5 years, and I've watched it erode so rapidly. But COVID had a large part to do with that, particularly in the House when Nancy Pelosi was keeping members apart, and metal detectors were going up, and members were being fined if they didn't wear a mask. And, you couldn't have in-person meetings. You couldn't have in-person committee meetings. The Senate was open environment, none of those rules. The Capitol had an imaginary line down the middle of it. You walk from one side to the other, and you're under different penalties or no penalties. And you've seen that trust in relationships just dissolve over time. And now it's, clearly bled over to the Senate.
So what are your, because I know you worked very hard to try to get, I don't want to use the word moderate, but people in Congress and the Senate that would work together. And that's one of your things you've done in your post-career in the Congress. But, how do you think, because I'm an optimist by nature, okay? So I kind of think we're almost at the end of this cycle, and I can see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel because I think that you're starting to see people like John Fetterman and others to say, wait a minute, this is not making sense. I'm an American before I'm a Democrat, or I'm an American before I'm a Republican. And we got to get back to that. Are you optimistic at all?
Yeah, I am. And I'm optimistic because you've seen a lot of really good House members, former House members, move to the Senate, get elected to the Senate. The Jim Banks, the James Langfords, the Steve Daines, the Tim Scotts, and others who have that appetite for working together with folks, finding, some areas in which you can agree. And my whole point has been, look, principles are important, and everybody should hold to their principles. But preferences are totally different. Let's talk about those. And then there's going to be things that we're probably never going to agree on. But I still want to understand your position. It doesn't mean you're going to change my position or principles, but maybe I'll have a better understanding of where you're coming from. And that's what I've been working with members, and just talking with especially incoming members. Is just, look, no matter where somebody's from, whatever their party affiliation is or their background, just take time to get to know them, because it's a lot easier to work with somebody you have a friendship with than with somebody that you're criticizing and hating all the time, right? It's very simple that way. And so I developed so many great friendships with people. Maybe I didn't vote with them or vote alike or agree 100% with, but I could have a friendship with them and later, have a better understanding of their point of view. And then maybe as a result of that friendship, they have a better understanding of my point of view and maybe might shift in my direction a little bit, right? It's you're trying to move or persuade. The easiest way to do that is through trust.
No, absolutely. I saw a funny exchange between Tim Burchett and AOC where they evidently have this kind of relationship where they make fun of each other and they they are very cordial and collegial with each other, even though they don't vote together at all on things. And I was encouraged to see that because, I don't think any one person is the devil. You know what I mean? It's like, I think that AOC gets a lot of attention that I'm not sure she's ready for, but she's getting it anyway. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I do think that we've got a lot of things that have to happen, whether it's, making sure that we have the support we need for the president related to his foreign policy goals or making sure we have the resources we need for things like the military and that sort of thing. So what's your advice to us as we move forward through all of this?
Just keep it in perspective that, you probably only, can recognize or know 8 to 10 names, 12 maybe or so in the House and the Senate. That means there's about 530 others or 520 others that are doing their job, that are getting along, that are working hard. Because it's a large body. There's a lot of personalities. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of great people, Republican and Democrat, who are working together in the right direction. But when you have thin majorities, it only takes a few to disrupt that, and those are that's the noise that breaks through the most. And so just keep it all in perspective. Still live in the greatest country on the planet, and we ebb and flow with who's in charge and who's in the majority and minority, and it's always going to flip and flop here in that direction. But it is still a wonderful place and spirited, and we got to love the spirited side of it,
Yeah, I always tell everybody you really need to read, if you haven't read, Democracy in America, because it is, by de Tocqueville, because it is, a really... You see that they had the same kind of problems in the early days of our republic that we have now. People really don't change that much. You've just got to find different ways to deal with it. And there's a lot more noise today because of social media and things like that. There's almost no ability to actually negotiate in private. And so it makes it more difficult to handle all kinds of things.
Right. And the key is don't make it personal. Don't judge people, for what they believe or what they're thinking. Everybody has an opportunity to develop their thoughts and positions over time. So, just have strong relationships with folks that maybe you just don't agree with. And this means in the community too, right? Because oftentimes we get labeled or we label others incorrectly, and we should just, guard against doing that. But incredible country, a lot of spirit, and it's still strong, and you're seeing the strength of it as we push through even these current days.
Now, can people help you with the projects you're working on right now?
I enjoy the opportunity to address folks and give them insight into what's really happening and how they can make a difference in whether it's local or even state level. And understanding how, especially at the workplace, right, where that's where a lot of the conversations occur, and that's where some disagreements occur, even churches, other places like that where, folks let politics divide them. So I enjoy any opportunity like that to talk with folks and give them encouragement and optimism about where things are and to, try to take the temperature down just a little bit.
Representative Tom Graves, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for the hard work you do for this country. It doesn't go unnoticed.
Thank you so much, Martha. Great to be with you.
Putting the talk in news talk. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
I'm here with Kelly Loeffler, who I'm so happy to have in the studio with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Martha. It's great to be here looking out on the beautiful Gainesville Town Square. What a lovely office you have.
Isn't it great?
Stunning. Great studio.
Yeah, and you were in the Bronx a week or so ago. I love that.
I was in the Bronx about 3 weeks ago, just before the shutdown, and I was really thrilled to be able to get there. We had a lot of great conversations with small businesses, and that's what I do every single week is get across the country and spend time talking to small businesses because they're our job creators. They're the backbone of this economy. And you see that here in Gainesville, too.
So what do you hear as you go around? What are their biggest concerns?
Well, I've gone from coast to coast. From California to Maine and all points in between. And you mentioned the Bronx. We think about what's going on in New York with that mayoral election. Those small business owners are already suffering from massive state and local regulation. And so we're there telling them we're at the federal level, we are deregulating as fast as we can so that small businesses don't have that added tax of regulatory compliance costs. I grew up in a small family business, a small trucking company and a family farm. I saw my parents struggling with paperwork. That's the last thing they need at the end of a long day, trying to make payroll for their employees and put food on our table. So we're talking particularly to blue states about how to deregulate and work with state and local. But we also hear a skilled workforce is a huge challenge for our small businesses because they create 2 out of every 3 new jobs in this country. They are the job creators, and they generate about 46% of our GDP. So a skilled workforce is going to help grow this economy and help onboard more people into this booming economy that President Trump has set up.
Yeah, I saw some number that was crazy. Like there's going to be the need for something like 140,000 welders over the next 10 years to build all these submarines that we want to build and ships because we want to bring shipbuilding back to America and do that sort of thing. And that was just mind-boggling to me.
Well, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, Martha. And this is why we have our Made in America manufacturing tour. As I've walked literally probably 150 factory floors now and talk to those business owners. Now, most manufacturers in America are small businesses, which is so great because it means that we can do more with less. That is what America is becoming, is a smart, automated manufacturing, but it's creating industries that we could never have here if we didn't have smart manufacturing that has the support of AI, automation. And then, you walk into a factory and it maybe has 50 to 100 employees, but they're producing parts for a major defense contractor. They're reshoring industries that left this country 30 years ago and hollowed out our main streets and our small towns like the one I grew up in. And so I'm so excited to see the convergence of technology and manufacturing, and we call it the new blue-collar boom.
So one of the things I mentor with a lot of young people, and I see a big difference between the people that are like in their late 30s who maybe have already bought their first home, or maybe they already had their job. They might have made a job change, whatever. And the people that are younger than that, the 25 to 35 range, where this would normally be where they would buy their first house, but they're not doing that because they've gotten so expensive. And the job change world is, I think it's gotten too AI, if you want to know the truth. I think we need to have a little more human interaction in this job search business. That's what I'm hearing from the kids I'm mentoring. What are you hearing when you go across the country?
Well, what I'm seeing right now certainly is still there's hundreds of thousands of jobs. I mean, literally millions of jobs open across the country, about 7.5 million, but 600,000 manufacturing jobs. So we still need people that are electricians and welders and HVAC. I mean, these are professional trades that you can do right out of high school with certifications. So, but what I'm really hearing is that we just need to make sure our kids have a good educational foundation. We've perhaps overemphasized what I call 6-year college, because now it takes an average of 6 years to get through school, and too many schools don't have a 50% graduation rate after 4 years. I find that shocking, particularly when you think about students accumulating student loans. And then you mentioned they're not able to buy homes, not only because during the last 4 years under Biden, we had massive inflation that was probably underreported at 20%. It's probably much higher. I think many small businesses saw their costs double, and many families saw their costs just go up much higher than 20%. So they're burdened with excessive high prices. Then they've got, which now have stabilized, and that's why I'm advocating for interest rates to continue to come down. We have structurally unnecessarily high interest rates, but I think we're going to get there on this glide path. But we've got to create this opportunity for people to get into the economy through good paying jobs. And that's going to come through some use of technology, but skilling young people in the right way to have those productive jobs. So how has your job changed since the government shutdown? Well, the Schumer shutdown is incredibly unfortunate. It, we have federal workers, we have our military that are not getting paid, that are, trying to do what they can to keep the government running for the American people, while Schumer stands there and says, every day this goes on, it gets better for us. Well, it gets worse for the American people. And thanks to President Trump, our military is getting paid because he's been creative about ensuring that the military funds get shifted over to pay our troops. And he shifted tariff funds over to pay the WIC. That's payments. Right. Yes. Women, infants, and children nutrition program. So, but that's only going to last so long. So how has my job changed? I'm obviously not able to travel around the country, and there's certain things that we can't do, which are critical to our mission. Chief among them are funding small businesses to the tune of 320 small businesses every single day in this country are not able to close on their commercial bank loans, depriving Main Streets of $170 million every single day in needed capital. And so far that's been over $2 billion. It's about 4,000 small businesses that have been shut out. And what does that mean? It means we've already seen people closing their doors because federal contracts, which we also oversee, have been put a stop service order on them. So they have stop work orders. They've had to lay off people. So, the Schumer shutdown is turning into the Schumer layoffs. And it doesn't get better for their side. And this is a CR. It's a clean continuing resolution that they've already passed 4 times. In fact, it's a Democrat-authored resolution. It's the same one they've been passing.
You probably voted on that once or twice.
Well, I haven't been up there for a while, but but I would say most Democrats have voted for that already. Yes. And 3 of them have already come over and said, yeah, we should reopen the government. I understand that they want to have a policy discussion, but I think everyone also understands that this is not the way to do it by hurting the American people.
No, and I agree with that. I think it's so interesting to watch these arguments flip. This is like what they used to say they wanted was a clean CR, which is what this is. And then to have the discussion about issues related to healthcare or whatever it is they want to talk about. But I think it's a pretty firm no that we are not going to give healthcare benefits to illegal immigrants. That's something the American people do not want.
Well, and that was, they had a chance to vote on that in the Senate this summer when we passed the Working Families Tax Cut that averted a $4 trillion tax hike on every hardworking American, that also provided, in addition to the biggest tax cut in American history, it also provided for an increased child tax credit. It provided for increased health savings accounts, and so $50 billion for rural hospitals. The list goes on and on. And so Democrats are mad about that bill passing, and they're doing everything they can to undo it, to tax the American people, to pay for benefits who refuse to work, and for over 1.4 million illegal aliens who it is not lawful to provide health care, but they're looking for every loophole that they can because they're catering to the far left wing of the party. And that's what you're going to see this weekend at their Hate America rally in Washington, which is why they can't reopen the government, because Chuck Schumer has to try to restore his credentials to the far radical left, that he is still on the team. I think that's beyond saving, but we can still save this economic momentum that we have, which is absolutely what they're trying to stop right now.
And I don't disagree that healthcare needs some discussion. My husband owns a small business that handles medical staffing in a correctional setting, and we've had this business since 2013, and that's all under ACA, okay? And it's just become harder and harder and harder and harder to get small group insurance if you have less than 50 employees through that period of time. Much harder to get, more expensive to get, right? And the percentage that we've been able to pay on our side, if he wants to pay full premiums. That's what he'd like to do, but we can't afford to do that. And then we have to find that balance between what can we feel good about charging our employees for their portion, and then what can we pay to help? And that's an argument that small business owners are having every day.
Every day. I heard it when I was in the Senate going around the state. I remember, being at so many small businesses and saying, first of all, it's so unaffordable, but second of all, the goalposts keep moving. So as soon as I comply with one reg on healthcare, they change the rules on that, and I simply cannot afford it. So we know that there are challenges, but we have what we have. That's where we are. But I will say this administration has already done more on healthcare in 10 months. If you think about the MFN clause in the pharmaceutical industry, where the most favored nations, where the United States is now going to benefit from healthcare innovation that we create, but yet we export around the world. They get a massive discount, and our consumers are paying 10x the cost of someone in Europe who didn't invest in that innovation. So look, this is an innovative administration. I'm so humbled to be part of a cabinet that most of us are from the private sector. We're bringing these experiences to bear as business owners, as people who have said, we're fed up, we're stepping out of our private sector to go make a difference up there. And so if we can just reopen the government, we can continue to bring these innovative solutions to lower the cost, because like I said, we are where we are. We have the healthcare law we have. We follow it. The Democrats want us to create something completely new that funds yet another entitlement that American families cannot bear.
Yeah, and I got to believe when you look at the second Trump term, it was kind of a blessing in disguise that he had those 4 years in between. I mean, God's got a plan. I mean, and he felt like we needed these 4 years in between to kind of see what we were missing. But I think he's different. I don't want you to take offense at this at all, because people accuse me of not being Trumpy enough. But I am for President Trump. I voted for him 3 times. But I will jokingly say right now, Donald Trump is the most reasonable voice in the room. The rest of the people that are opposing him sound so crazy. And, you know, he used to be the guy that people said were crazy. He was never crazy. He was always crazy as a fox, right? But he is reasonable. He's talking about things. He's promising things. Charlemagne the God of all people said, don't tell me what you can't do as president anymore. We've seen Donald Trump. Donald Trump is showing us what you can do as president, and it's amazing to watch.
Well, it's two sides of a coin, which is Trump has always been right. He has always been right. It's the mainstream, the legacy media that has characterized him in a way that was not ever accurate. In fact, the deep state and Washington set about trying to set him up, couldn't touch him. And now look, you know, everything's being revealed about what their actions were, whether it was Comey or Jack Smith, and the list goes on and on. These all turn out to be frauds. And the president was right all along. And he's been right about this country. We've sold out our working families to China. We've sold out our middle class manufacturing and main streets. And he is bringing it back because he believes in the American worker and American industry. He's putting America first. And the legacy media resisted that narrative, and they wanted to do it in favor of, you know, the elites on both coasts and saying, you know, we're going to cater to the far left. And that just didn't hold water when President Trump won every single swing state and 2,500 counties or 3,500 counties across the country, and they won, what, 50?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, and it's only, 11 months ago. It's, in a few weeks it'll be a year, but it's an amazing thing. If people need help from the SBA, how can they do that?
Well, the SBA does a number of things. Our chief objective is to advance the interest and the success of small business, and we do that through capital, because the number one thing small businesses need is capital, whether to invest, to grow, to manage cash flow, to have that working capital. We've innovated around that. We're expanding our loan limits. Last year, we had a record year at the SBA in the 72-year history. Our year wrapped up September 30th. We did 85,000 loans totaling $45 billion. And just for your listeners to know, we do this as a zero subsidy program. So no cost to taxpayers when the programs run properly. We also manage, essentially like business counseling through our small business development centers, largely on campuses across the country. So if you have a business plan, you want to walk through it, it's available at no charge. And then, of course, we do federal contracting for businesses that want to contract with the federal government. It's the largest purchaser in the world at over $1 trillion of purchases. Small businesses get about $189 billion of that. About 5,000 here in Georgia are small business federal contractors. And then the last thing is disaster relief. So we provide those disaster recovery loans after hurricanes. I know we're at the 1-year anniversary of the tragic Helene, yes. Where the Biden SBA had run out of funds along with the entire Biden emergency response effort. And under President Trump, we have been there from day one on all disasters, whether it was in LA or whether it was President Trump came here even before he was elected in Georgia a year ago and North Carolina. And in fact, 73% of our disaster money this year went to the fires in L.A. that they have still not, 10 months ago, they have not rebuilt from.
They have not rebuilt. Kelly Loeffler, SBA Administrator, thank you so much for being with us today.
Martha.
It's local radio, and that's why you're listening. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
We're talking to Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, and we're talking a little shutdown news. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm in a phone booth doing this interview, so I feel like I'm taking off my glasses and suit and putting on a cape or something.
Well, you are a Clark Kent type, that's for sure.
I don't know about that because I definitely have kryptonite. It's called my wife.
That's very good. Very good. Listen, before we get into talking a little bit about our Georgia race that we've got going on here, right now, we're as of the recording of this interview, we're talking to Mark Wayne Mullen, and, we're still in the government shutdown. Just give us your thoughts on that. The Schumer shutdown, how long is this going to be?
It's hard to explain crazy. My mama told me a long time ago, you can't argue with crazy, nor can you make sense of it. And so when you're talking to someone that's completely irrational because, this is a Schumer shutdown, it makes no political sense as far as we go, but when you look at it from their point, they're making political decisions. So when you take the American people factor out of it because it's not about service, it's about survival, which is what Chuck Schumer's doing right now, you think, how can he be voting against a clean CR that literally means a continuous resolution, keeping government funding the exactly same way it's been funded for the last year, which means that it literally was written, the CR that we're asking him to vote for, he literally wrote this out of his leader's office last September, when he was leader of the Senate and Joe Biden was in office. Now they say they can't vote for it. Why? Because he's afraid of a 2028 election by AOC, because when he voted for it in September last year, it was good. When he voted for it in December last year, Biden was still in office. It was good. When he voted for it in January, before President Trump was sworn in office, by the way, it was good. But in March, President Trump was in office. He voted for the same CR again, and AOC came out and threatened to run against him, and Indivisible and these radical left groups started saying they wanted him to resign. Now he's running from a shadow. So trying to figure out how it ends, I'd make two stabs at it. One, this weekend is the No Kings rally, the anti-Trump rally that's all over. Literally, it's in major cities across the country. But the big demonstrations here in Washington, D.C., he's been railing about this for some time. My friends that are Democrats that are wanting to open the government up, they said that, quote, Schumer thinks the optics aren't good if they open it before the rally. So maybe they come to their senses and they open it next week. I think that's a possibility. The next possibility would be after the 1st of November, because of these supposed high increases for insurance premiums that are going to be going up, which I don't think that's going to be accurate. They're saying it's going to go up like 1,000% per person. That's irrational, but a lie is sexier than the truth, and that's all they can do right now.
So I've been telling my listeners all week to call the Georgia office of Senator Ossoff and Senator Warnock and tell them to represent their voters and to vote to open the government back up. But there's a few other states that have got people that are up for election. Gary Peters in Michigan. I think it's Jackie Rose in Nevada, Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin, a few others. Obviously, we got to get Rand Paul back on the reservation, which I think he will eventually vote to open the government. But is that the right advice to give, to have people from those states call those offices and say, change your vote?
Absolutely, because when you have politicians like that in office, they only concerned about the popularity of their reelection. And keep in mind, both senators that you just spoke about, they won their elections in Georgia by less than 50, right at 51 and 50, just over 50%.
That's correct.
And so they're right on the cuff of losing their election. So the more they hear from your listeners, and do it in a respectful way. I mean, don't be hateful, but do it in a respectful way. I mean that sincerely, and let them know that they need to open up the government. That there's nothing against a clean CR. There's no Republican policies that they can't vote for. And by the way, they've already voted for it. Both senators have already voted for this 3 times. One voted for it 4 times. So the more they hear from their constituents, their true constituents, the more pressure it puts on them, and the more likely they are to change their vote. And next week, not this week, because the optics of the No Kings rally wouldn't look good if they caved in and opened. But starting Sunday, Monday, maybe they come to their senses and we can reopen the government Monday night or Tuesday.
So I heard Senator Fetterman, who I never thought I would like him as much as I do, I'll be honest with you. But he made a great statement yesterday where he said, look, I'm an American before I'm a Democrat. And I have said that many times, that I am an American before I'm a conservative and a Republican. Okay. I don't understand why more of these folks don't feel that way. Why? It does feel like, Mark Wayne, that they hate our country. They really don't love our country. You wouldn't take the 20% position on every important issue if you loved this country.
Well, I tell people all the time, I can work with anyone as long as they love the American flag as much as I do. I speak that way all the time. And I can get along with a Democrat as long as they represent their backyard accordingly, because, our founding fathers never wanted us to have a ruling party. They wanted us to all represent our state or our backyard. That was vitally, vitally, vitally important to everybody, and especially our founding fathers. So, a Democrat from Massachusetts could never get elected in Oklahoma, but I could never get elected in Massachusetts either. So I can agree with differences. What I can't agree with is when you make political decisions, and that's what the Democrats are right now. The Democrats are trying to find their way, and they're being led, and I'm not calling them names, I'm being serious by this. They're being led by Marxists and jihadists. And you think about who's leading the party. You have Bernie Sanders, he's an open socialist, AOC, an open socialist, Mamdani, who is a communist, and then you have the squad, and Tlaib and Omar and Jasmine Crockett, who are, well, you can make the decision on who they are. And so the party has left the values. They're a socialist country that even some of them have openly supported Sharia law. I'm not putting names into it. This is everything that they said. You can go look it up at yourself. So I'm not trying to call names, not trying to add to it. I'm serious of what they said. They've even been sworn into office on the Quran. That changes the fundamental values of our country. And when you do that, you're trying to you can change the decor of a house. You can even remodel the walls of a house by turning them down and maybe even propping up low-bearing walls, but you change the foundation of a house or a building, it crumbles. And what they're trying to do is change the foundation of our republic and put in this new type of government. Sharia law is a government. Socialism is an experiment that has failed over and over again, the same thing with communism. We are better than that. We're different. And so I can't have conversations with individuals like that. This is no longer, the Democrat Party is no longer the party of JFK. It's this extreme Marxist look to our country that's wanting to move towards socialism, with socialism the first step to communism. It's a full stop. At that point, you can't work with them at that state, which is why the Democrats' polling is the lowest in popularity it's ever been in its history of the party.
So I've had a pretty decent relationship with John Ossoff. He's come on the show a few times. He has, when my mother-in-law died, he wrote me a really nice note. I mean, it's been decent. What's happened recently, though, he now wants to record interviews. He doesn't want to take questions anymore. He now he doesn't return calls at all. I mean, and he still puts out these press releases that he's this big bipartisan person. And I wrote a column a couple of weeks ago where I said why he shouldn't get reelection. And I'm sure I won't get any phone calls back from him anymore, but I don't care. I always tell the truth. That's why I can live with myself every day. But I don't understand why a guy that got 50.4 or 50.6% of the vote is not more representative of the state. And the only answer to that could be that he's getting his money from people that are telling him what to think.
Well, but it also, listen, you don't have to be a career politician to be in office as long as Senator Schumer has been. I mean, Schumer was in the House of Representatives when I was still in high school, and that was 30 years ago. But you can become a politician as soon as you get up here. When you go back to the questions you asked me earlier, should your listeners be calling their office? Yes, because you influence people like them, because they make decisions not on what's best for America and also what's best for Georgia, but what's best for their reelection. And when you have a guy that's running scared of his reelection, it can be an influence. But with him, he's also scared of the primary, because he knows in Georgia, not only does he have to worry about a primary, but he's got to worry about a general, and he can never make it to the general if he gets into the primary. Well, the far left has threatened anybody that votes for this CR to open back up the government, even though it's a clean CR, that they're going to try to primary them. So that influences their decision, because now they're not worried about their service. They're worried about their political career. And I've said this over and over again. If your best job that you've ever had, the best title you've ever had, is being elected to office, then you'll never do the right thing and sometimes make those votes that you could fire yourself on, but you know it's the right vote. And he's struggling with that.
Yeah, so I'm on a show called The Georgia Gang that's on Fox 5 Atlanta on Sunday mornings, and I've been poking him a little bit, saying, we got these 7 progressives running in the Democratic primary in Georgia. They're just going to split the progressive vote. One of y'all need to drop out and vote against and run against John Ossoff, and then we'll see how far left he'll go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so I've been having a little fun with that. He will go very far left. Mark Wayne Mullen, how can we help?
Well, be involved. I wake up every single morning and I say, love the people, love the call. And I mean that sincerely. But the biggest thing that we look at, and I say when you can help, the people of Georgia, the way you can help is take back your cities and your towns. We look to Washington, D.C. to solve our issues, and our federal government was never designed to solve our local issues. We overlook city council races. We overlook school board elections. And if we want to win our towns, we want to win our schools, we've got to get involved in those, and we've got to support people willing to step up, and we've got to get good people willing to run. So let's get Georgia back red, not purple. And we do that by winning our local elections in our cities and our schools.
Absolutely. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma, it's great to talk to you again, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Talk to you later.
To hear the full versions of last week's Martha Zoller shows, go to the podcast page at accesswdun.com, and you can follow me on social media at Martha Zoller.